All right, good morning. This is Dimitri from Saving Money and Creating Additional Income. And I know I told you guys in the past that I want to try to get guests and different perspective on money from different people. And today I actually have a guest. So this is my first guest on the show. Want to introduce you guys to Jillian. So Jillian's here to my left. And we're going to talk a little bit about saving money and not investing so much, but just saving money and just different habits from a different perspective. Because I know you guys get tired of hearing my voice, so we're gonna talk to her for a minute and get some perspective from her. So, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being
No
here.
problem, no problem.
All right. So why don't you tell everybody about yourself, a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am originally from Miami, Florida. I am now living in Virginia. I spent 15 years in the United States Navy. I got out about 4 years ago. And I've traveled all over the world, so I've been able to see different types of, just how people deal with money all over the world and in different parts of the country. I've lived, on the West Coast, East Coast, South, just wherever. So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, well, good. I mean, it's good to give some perspective because there's a lot of folks on here that prior military, a lot of folks from down south. So,
Right.
so that'll give definitely some down home perspectives. So, give a little bit about your experience with money. How'd you deal with money growing up? How'd your parents deal with money?
Money for me, as probably the majority of a lot of people, was not really a good experience. It's the holidays now, so we would ask our parents for different type of Christmas gifts, and your parents always telling you, oh, money don't grow on trees. We always had this
Right.
negative connotation with money.
Right.
And that was my childhood. It was always, in a negative sense. My parents, even though they did, but it's, oh, I don't have this money, or, you can't get that, or you have to wait, or,
Right.
and things like that. So, and we need to try to shift that because money is not negative.
That's true.
And we need to shift, get that out of our mindset because that's how we get those generational curses and people not being able to handle money well. My parents didn't handle money well.
That's true, and I think that's a going thing in the African American community because we look at it a little bit different. We look at it like having money. When we get extra money, we're going out buying cars, we're going out buying clothes, things like that, and that's the mindset that I kind of grew up with too.
Right.
And it was a challenge in the
Right.
beginning.
Exactly, and unfortunately, it's still in my family. I have an aunt who is still in that mindset. She'd rather go and buy. People want to be up in the latest fashion. They want to have the best of
Right.
whatever, trying to keep up with people who are struggling just like them. Everybody's trying to keep up with each other,
Right.
not knowing that everybody's in the same boat,
Right.
basically. And we just need to try and change it. So that was my thing growing up. But but as I got older, I had my first job when I was 16. When I was in high school, I had a summer internship, a paid summer internship, and it kind of changed my perception of money, because I just knew that things just was, I'm like, we need to try, even at that young age.
Right.
I just knew that this is not
Right.
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 I just had that mindset of, okay, this
Right.
needs to change. This isn't the way this should be.
Okay, so everybody had that aha moment. Everybody had that moment, and I know when that moment was for me, and it was just a wake up call. I grew up in a household where parents had a lot of credit cards and using one credit card to pay off the other, and I had a similar moment, but not as many cards. When I joined the military. Back in '95, I went up to Alaska, and I don't know if you remember when they had DPP, Deferred Payment Program, and I had one that was just for the club. So I went in every night after work. I would go in and I would buy food, and it got to a point where the card got charged up to $500 or so, and at the time I'm an E3,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, I don't have the money to pay this off. So it ended up going into a charge off with my credit. So then that ruined my credit. I tried to go buy my first house maybe 3 years after that. Couldn't get that because my credit was screwed up. So it became an aha moment because I'm like, all right, I cannot move forward until I start getting these things fixed. And the only way I can get these things fixed is to kind of have an understanding of money. And that's where the ball started kind of rolling for me and the light came on. So what was that moment for you?
That moment for me, I was actually in the Navy. I was living in California. I was stationed in San Diego, and we all know California is one of the most expensive places to live besides New York and San Francisco, Northern California. But Southern California as a whole is just an expensive place. But at the time, I didn't know that because that was my first duty station. I was only 20, 21. So I didn't have anything really to compare it to. So it didn't have any effect on me. But anyway, that moment came one day. I was in my apartment and, not so much as credit cards, but just not, having money because I'm just going out doing other things with my money instead of being fiscally responsible with it. But I was in my apartment and I looking at all my debt because I did the consolidation. I had done all this stuff, but then you do the debt consolidation, but now your credit cards are free, so then you go and spend up more stuff on that, so you just have double stuff. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just looking at all this stuff, not being able to pay certain bills. Can we push this bill to this, to this day because you don't have the money for it. And I'm like, I'm in this hole. And I was like, there has to be a way for me to get out of this. And I was sinking so far down. I was sinking so far because I just felt overwhelming. Like you, I was probably in E3, E4. My first apartment and everything, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this hole, like, how am I going to dig myself out of this hole? I felt like I was just so buried in it. So that was a defining moment for me because at one point, probably a few months before that, I had my rent check bounced.
Oh,
so I could, so I didn't even have the money to pay my rent. And luckily the guy, my ex-fiance who, we were dating at the time, was able to come to my rescue. But not everybody has that.
That's true.
And if he wasn't there, I would have been SOL. So that was a real defining moment for me that, hey, I need to... I need to get it together.
And see, stuff like that is big, especially when you're in a situation where you don't really have anybody else to lean on. Luckily for you, you did have your fiance, but what if you didn't?
Exactly.
And there's a lot of folks out here that don't necessarily have that, where, okay, hey, I get in trouble. I don't have anybody to call. I don't have anybody to lean on. My credit is this, all that. So knowing that other people kind of have these aha moments or have these moments where it's like, oh crap, I'm in trouble. You kind of need to do something. So, all right. So what kind of things do you practice at home, to try to stay on track?
Well, I know you mentioned before, probably on another show, that about budgeting. And people have a misconception about budgeting as well. People think when you budget, you're broke. No, I'm just telling my money where it's going. Because I can go out next month and buy a $100,000 car, but I budgeted for it. It's not to say. So when people tell people that, hey, I can't go here because I haven't budgeted for it, it's not to say I don't have the money. It's not in my budget this month for me to go out to eat or do whatever or buy this TV or whatever. So budgeting is a big thing, and I also have a journal that in either where I've made my own or I buy budgeting planners like you to put my income and because you have to know, in order for you to get your finances straight, you have to know where you stand. And so as scary as it may be for us to to want to have to face it, we have to face reality.
That's true.
Have to, because I've been there, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to I didn't want to face reality. I didn't want to know how
That's true.
bad
That's true.
it was. But I knew in order for me to get out of the position I was in, I had to face it. So open up all those bills that most of us have on the countertop
Right.
that's unopened, that we're afraid to open. You have to open it up and like I said, write down everything. Write down every single bill, automatic payments, anything that goes out of that you pay for every month. Write it down. I write everything down.
Right.
I even write down something for entertainment just in case I do want to go to the movies or go out with friends or whatever. But it's just I budget and just tell my money where it's going for
Right.
that month. And it's not saying that you have to have $0 in your bank account, but hey, if you would just want a cushion of $500 and then
Right.
write that down.
Right.
That's part of the budget. So that's one thing that I do. One thing that I'm doing now also is getting the emergency fund. You want a fully stocked
Yes.
emergency fund. At least 3 to 6 months. You want to shoot for 6, but 3 to 6 months
Right.
emergency fund, because anything could happen at any point in time, and
It
you
does.
want your emergency to be an inconvenience.
That's and that's a big thing. That's a big thing. That emergency fund should almost that emergency should almost be like a small speed bump in the road, not a
Right,
boulder.
right. Not a major setback that if your tire blows out, that's going to be a major setback for you.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's $300-$400 or whatever, however much a tire costs, but okay, I have the money. So
Right.
you have that peace of mind,
Right.
because a lot of Americans today, I've been reading, a lot of Americans today don't even have $1,000
That's true.
to pay for an
That's true.
emergency.
That's true.
And most, some emergencies, especially car repairs, or even just, you may have a little minor medical, whatever the situation is that's an emergency. Most Americans don't even have
Right.
that in their account. So, like I said, you don't want your emergency to set you back. Like I said, you just want it to be an inconvenience.
Right.
That, okay, I had to come out $300, but you'll be glad that you had
Right.
that money. So that's another thing that I'm working on, is it's my emergency fund, because again, you want it to be able to take care of your bills since if you should be out of work for any amount of time, even if it's just 2 weeks.
Right.
Your bills are still coming. You still need to be
Exactly.
able to pay your bills.
Exactly.
And then, a 401k for those of us who have jobs, who have, 9 to 5 jobs. You want your 401k to be stopped because you're planning for your retirement.
Right.
I know me and the lifestyle I want to have. I want to be able to travel and do a lot
Right.
of things. So you have to set your goals. What is it that you want to do? When you retire, how do you want to live?
Right.
And so these are all things that you have to talk about,
Right.
and get
Right.
and face your reality
Right.
with it.
And those are big. And I'm glad you brought up the 401k. I'm glad you brought up the emergency fund. One of the big things in our society is we don't have an understanding of what could happen if we go in and we take out 401k loans and things like that, or if we go in and we're not using that money for retirement and pulling it out at retirement
Right.
age. So it's a huge tax hit. It's about, you're borrowing about 50% when you're taking out that money to get a loan. And it might be easy to go in and get, but it's a pain to get back, because you cannot replace time.
Right.
You can't replace time, and that's the thing that people forget all the time.
Right.
So what I want you to do right now for me, look into the camera, and I want you to tell the people out there, give them some advice that they can use to go forward from here.
Again, my advice, like some of the things like I just said, just face your reality, get all those bills out and get caught up on your bills. I know some of us I've been there. I've been behind on bills. We have to get caught up on them and just lay it all out there on the table, because in order for you to move forward, you have to have your baseline. You have to know exactly what it is that you are dealing with. You have to know your financial health and where you stand, and then you have to, and that paves the roadmap for where you want to be. this is where I am and this is where I want to be. But in order to do that, you have to know exactly where you stand. So that would be the first step in this process, is to find out exactly where you stand. Write down all your debts, the income, and if you don't make enough income, then we have to find ways of bringing more income in, whether it be a side job or, a second job for a few months, in order, even if it's just to get caught up on bills. But you have to know exactly where you stand in order for you to be able to move forward, and then just have a goal and plan in place. Okay, this is where I am, this is where I want to be, these are the steps that I need to get to where I need to be. So.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you very, very much for coming on here. My first guest. So thank you for being here, and thank you for the insight that you gave. Like I said, I know that I talk you guys' ears off every other day, but thank you guys for tuning in and listening. This is Mitri from Saving Money and Creating Additional Income. Have a great Thanksgiving.